Hi, my name is Kyle Therese Cranston. I'm a spiritual consultant and psychic medium. My YouTube channel is at Kyle Therese Cranston, and I'm going to walk you through 17 signs that your shadow is showing up in your life, and it's time to do the work. So, number one, recurring patterns of self-sabotage. You keep repeating cycles of negative behavior or thoughts. And no matter how much you want things to be different, you find yourself right back where you started. Maybe you meet someone wonderful and you find a reason to push them away. Or you set a goal and then you start to make progress and then suddenly you let it all fall apart. Here's the thing. Self-sabotage rarely feels like sabotage in the moment. It disguises itself as being too busy or deciding the timing wasn't right or telling yourself you don't really want it anyway. But underneath those stories is usually a shadow belief, something like, I don't deserve this, or if I succeed, something bad will happen, or people will see who I really am. Your shadow will always find a way to keep you at the level it believes it belongs until you shine your light on it. Number two, consistently undermining your own success or happiness. This can show up as procrastination, negative self-talk, or avoidance, and it may indicate unresolved inner conflicts living in your shadow. This one is subtle because it doesn't always look dramatic. It's the project you keep putting off, even though you deeply care about it. It's talking yourself out of an opportunity before you even try. It's downplaying a compliment, deflecting praise, or feeling deeply uncomfortable when things are actually going well in your life. Sometimes we do things to undermine our own success or happiness, not when things are hard, but when things are good. If peace and success feel unfamiliar or even unsafe to you, your shadow may be working overtime to bring you back to what feels normal, even if it means struggle. Ask yourself, do I feel more comfortable in chaos or in calm? Do I find reasons to worry even when there's nothing to worry about? Somewhere there is a belief that you don't deserve to have it good, and that belief needs to be brought into the light and healed. Number three, strong emotional reactions or easily being triggered. If you find yourself having intense emotional responses like anger, sadness, shame, guilt, embarrassment, fear, jealousy, regret, to situations or people, it could indicate unresolved shadow aspects. Number four, unexplained fears, anxieties, unexplained fears or anxieties. Unresolved shadow aspects can manifest as fear, anxiety, or even avoidance. But what makes these fears tricky is that they don't always have an obvious source. You can't always trace them back to a specific moment or memory. They just pop up when you're triggered. Maybe you avoid certain situations without really knowing why, or you feel a wave of panic that seems completely disconnected from what's actually happening around you. That's your shadow speaking. It's carrying fears that were formed long ago, often in childhood, that never go acknowledged or processed. And until they do, they'll keep showing up dressed in clothes of anxiety, dressed in the clothes of everyday anxiety, I meant to say. Number five, people-pleasing personality. Overextending yourself repeatedly for others to gain approval that leads to burnout or resentment is your shadow side at work. On the surface, people-pleasing can look like kindness or generosity, but if you dig a little deeper, it's usually rooted in a fear of rejection, abandonment, or conflict. Somewhere along the way, you may have learned that your worth was tied to how useful or agreeable you were, that your needs mattered less than keeping the peace. So if you kept saying yes when you meant no, kept shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable, and your shadow grew heavier with every boundary you didn't. Your shadow grew heavier with every boundary you didn't set. Number six, judgment of others. Judging or being highly critical of others may be a sign that you're projecting your own shadow aspects onto them. This is one of the most common and most uncomfortable signs to recognize in yourself. Here's how projection works. The traits we most strongly dislike in others are often traits we cannot accept in ourselves. Your shadow holds the parts of you that you've rejected, suppressed, or were told were unacceptable. And because you can't see them in yourself, you see them out there in other people. So if someone's arrogance sends you into a spiral of irritation, it's worth asking, is there a part of me that wants to be seen that I've been suppressing? If someone's laziness drives you crazy, there could be a part of you that's just exhausted and needs rest but won't allow yourself to take it. This doesn't mean that other people's behaviors is always a reflection of you or that nothing is genuinely ever wrong. But when your reaction feels charged, when the judgment feels heated and personal, there's a signal worth paying attention to. The people who trigger us most are often our greatest teachers. They are holding up a mirror, whether we want to see it or not. Number seven, recurring negative patterns. Repeated cycles in relationships, work, or personal behavior that lead to negative outcomes can often signal shadow issues. Have you ever looked back at your life and noticed some story playing over and over, just with different people or settings? You keep ending up in the same kind of relationships. You keep hitting the same wall at work. You keep finding yourself in the same argument, the same dynamic, the same dead end. That could be your shadow. Until the resolved wound underneath the pattern is acknowledged and healed, your subconscious will keep recreating that familiar because the familiar feels safe, even when it's painful. The pattern is always pointing at something deeper than asking to be seen, that's asking to be seen. Number eight, low self-worth. Struggling with feelings of unworthiness, shame, or guilt often points to unacknowledged shadow aspects related to past trauma or conditioning. And shame in particular is a huge indicator that shadow work is needed. Low self-worth doesn't always look like someone who is visibly struggling. Sometimes it's the high achiever who can never feel satisfied with what they've accomplished. Sometimes it's the person who is wonderful at taking care of everyone else, but they can't receive love or receive help in return. It hides in perfectionism and over apologizing and always feeling like you are somewhere, like you are somehow too much and never enough at the same time. Number nine, emotional numbness. Feeling disconnected, numb, or apathetic may be a defense mechanism from shadow material that you've repressed. When we experience pain, trauma, or emotions that feel too overwhelming to sit with, the psyche does something incredibly intelligent. It shuts the door on them. If you find yourself going through the motions of life without really feeling present, watching yourself from a distance, struggling to feel excitement or love or grief the way you used to, that flatness may be your shadow asking to be seen. Number 10, addictive behaviors. Over reliance on coping mechanisms such as food, drugs, alcohol, or work can suggest a need to address hidden emotions or aspects of yourself. Addictive behaviors are often just what the shadows are often the shadow's way of asking for relief. When emotions feel too painful, too confusing, too unsafe to sit with, we reach for something to take the edge off. And it works temporarily, but the underlying feeling doesn't go away. It just waits. The substance or behavior is never really the problem. It's the symptom. The real question to ask yourself is, what am I trying not to feel? What is so uncomfortable inside me that I need to escape? That's where the shadow work begins. Number 11, envy and jealousy. Feeling intense envy at other people's success, relationships, or happiness may indicate disowned parts of yourself that you need to acknowledge, heal, or integrate. Envy gets a bad reputation, but it's actually one of the most useful shadow signs you have, if you're willing to look at it honestly. When you feel a sting of jealousy towards someone, ask yourself, what is this specifically that they have that I want? Because that longing is pointing directly at something you desire for yourself, something you may have told yourself you can't have, don't deserve, or gave up on a long time ago. Your envy really isn't about them. It's a map back to yourself. Number 12, fear of being judged. Constantly worrying about others' opinions or feeling the need to be appear perfect can point to parts of yourself that you reject or feel ashamed of. This one runs deep for a lot of people. When we have disowned parts of ourselves, parts we believe are unlovable, embarrassing, or unacceptable, we live in a constant fear that someone else is going to see those parts too. We curate them, we perform, we present the most polished version of ourselves, and we work really hard to keep the rest of ourselves hidden. The exhausting thing about living this way is that the approval you get never quite lands. Because deep down, you know that approving of the mask is not the real, they're approving of the mask that's not the real you. True freedom comes when the fear of judgment doesn't come from getting better at hiding. It comes from doing the inner work to accept the parts of yourself that you're most afraid to show. Number 13, accepting criticism. If criticism deeply affects you, it might be highlighting parts of your personality you have rejected or don't want to face. When feedback hits a nerve, when it sends you into defensiveness or shame or a spiral of self-doubt, that's worth paying attention to. The intensity of the reaction is the clue of the shadow work. Number 14, inability to focus or overthinking. Unconsciously, when you're unconsciously grappling with fear or anxiety, insecurities or anxieties, and you replay situations over and over again in your mind, or you analyze every detail excessively, those are all shadow aspects that can cause you to lose the actual truths or a grounded sense of reality. Overthinking is rarely just a bad habit. It's usually anxiety in disguise. And the anxiety is rooted in something unresolved living in your shadow. Poor digestion. Digestion is all about absorbing everything that is happening to us, our experiences, our feelings, our thoughts, our interactions. And it's also about eliminating what we no longer need. When we are holding on to unprocessed emotions, suppressing feelings, or carrying chronic stress, our digestive system often reflects it. Number 16, pain in the body. Pain in any area of the body is a signal that something is out of balance. Sometimes the body is trying to communicate what has been repressed, dismissed, or overlooked. Number 17, physical triggers that lead to emotional reactions. When physical sensations show up in the body that lead to an emotional response, it can be your shadow. When your shadow is triggered by something, your jaw may clench. You might feel right before you feel anger. Your chest might tighten. Your heart might start to race before you feel fear or shame. Learning to notice these physical cues is actually one of the most powerful tools in shadow work. Your body will always react before your conscious mind matches or catches up to it. So if you can learn to tune into those early physical signals, like that sudden heaviness in the pit of your stomach or the heat rising in your face, you will give yourself a moment of pause before the emotion takes place. And that pause is where a lot of the healing happens in shadow work. So thank you very much. There you have it. Those are my 17 signs that your shadow may be at work beneath the surface of your everyday life. And I hope it was helpful. Thank you for watching.